My best man slept with my bride-to-be 3 days before the wedding. I didn't cancel the ceremony. I rewrote the vows and read them anyway. I'm Jason, 32 years old, male, and 3 days before what should have been the happiest day of my life, I found out my best man and my fiance were fucking behind my back. And I didn't call off the wedding. I rewrote the vows, and I read them anyway. But let me take you back, because if you don't know who these people were to me, you won't understand why it burned like it did. Jake, 34, male, has been my best friend since middle school. We grew up together in a small town outside St. Louis. He taught me how to ride a bike, took a punch for me in 8th grade, was the first person to show up when my dad died, and the only one who sat beside me in court when I fought to keep the house. I loved him like a brother. Some days, more than that. Not in a romantic way, just deeper than words. He was part of my bones. And Sarah, 28 female, was supposed to be the one. We met at a networking event in Chicago 3 years ago. I was there for a client pitch. She was covering the event for the magazine she worked at. I remember what she wore. Red blazer, gold earrings, sneakers with scuffed soles that didn't match the rest of her outfit. It was like she hadn't figured out whether she wanted to impress or escape. I asked her a dumb question about how the wine was. She laughed. We talked for 3 hours straight. The rest of the world just faded. I took her to my mom's the next weekend. Sarah had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room. Like if she looked at you too long, your whole chest started to warm up. She was sharp too, sassy in that charming, flirty way that made strangers feel like old friends. She could banter with waiters and humble my ego in 3 words. I proposed to her under a broken streetlight because she said she loved the ugly corners of life. She said yes before I even pulled the ring out. And Jake? Jake cried when I asked him to be my best man. Said it was the greatest honor of his life. Now here's the part that still fucks with me. They were close, Sarah and Jake. But I liked that at first. I liked that my 2 favorite people got along. They'd roast me together, gang up on me when I forgot to buy toilet paper, trade inside jokes like they were siblings. Sometimes I'd come home from work and find them on the porch, drinking beers and talking about books I never had time to read. It made me feel lucky, like I'd built this perfect little trio out of the chaos of life. But there were moments, tiny, sour moments I choked down. Like the time Jake told Sarah she looked dangerous in her black dress at the rehearsal tasting, or how she smiled a second too long before thanking him, or how she started calling him when she was upset with me, said he was easier to talk to. I ignored every red flag. Because the truth is, when you love people that much, you don't look for betrayal. You just keep assuming they love you back the same way. I was wrong. So wrong. It was the Wednesday before the wedding when I found out. 3 days before the ceremony. The flowers were already delivered. The final head count submitted. My mom had flown in early to help Sarah with her dress. Jake was staying at my place just like we'd planned. 2 best friends sharing one last stretch of bachelorhood. And I swear to God, I wasn't snooping. I was looking for my cufflinks. The ones my dad gave me before his last surgery. I'd left them in my nightstand drawer, which I hadn't used since Sarah moved in. When I opened it, there was this little velvet box. One of hers. Jewelry, probably. I was about to close the drawer when I noticed the corner of a folded note sticking out from underneath it. I don't even know why I pulled it out. Maybe part of me already knew. It was written on hotel stationery. One of those boutique places with a fake European name. Jake's handwriting, slanted and a little messy like always. I don't care what happens after Saturday. I'll still love you. We'll find our way back. One way or another. I sat down right there on the floor. I reread it 6 times like maybe I was misinterpreting it. Maybe love meant something different in context. Maybe he wrote it years ago and it had nothing to do with Sarah. But no, the hotel was local, 2 miles from our apartment. The date at the top, 5 days ago. I didn't cry. Not then. I think some part of me just shut off, like when a circuit gets overloaded and the whole breaker flips to protect itself from catching fire. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I watched. That night, we had dinner at the Italian place Sarah loved. Jake came too, sat next to her. I watched him refill her wine glass without asking. Watched her laugh at his dumb jokes while ignoring mine. Her hand brushed his arm at one point. She didn't even look guilty. It was all there, right in front of me. I'd just been too blinded by love to see it. Later, I tested something. I told Sarah I had to head to the venue early the next morning to meet with the event coordinator. Told her I'd be gone for a couple hours. I left, parked down the street, walked to the side alley. Our apartment had a back entrance. One Jake would know. Sure enough, 26 minutes later, he showed up. I saw his face through the kitchen window, smiling. Saw her open the door. Saw them kiss. Not a nervous, shameful kiss. Not a goodbye. A kiss like this was just another Thursday for them. And something in me cracked so quietly, I almost didn't notice. I didn't rage, didn't pound on the door, didn't barge in. I walked away and started writing. Not a text, not a confrontation. Vows, new ones. Because if they were going to humiliate me, They were going to do it while dressed to the nines with 120 people watching, and I was going to return the favor. With a smile on my face. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car outside a 24-hour diner with the engine off and the vow card in my lap. The one I was supposed to hand to the officiant. The original version. Full of words like soulmate and forever and thank you for saving me. It felt like a joke now. Like someone else had written it in a different universe. I ripped it in half, then again, until the pieces were too small to even read. What I wrote instead wasn't a vow. Not really. It was a eulogy. For the person I used to be. For the life I thought I was building. By morning, I had it memorized. I went home at 6 a.m. and made coffee like nothing had happened. Sarah was in the shower. Jake had already left. I stared at my reflection in the kitchen window and forced myself to smile. Practiced it even. She came out in a robe, towel on her head, smelling like vanilla shampoo, kissed me on the cheek, said she couldn't believe it was almost here. 3 more days, she whispered, holding my hand. You ready? I smiled again. Yeah, I'm ready. We had our final planning meeting with the coordinator that day. Sarah acted normal, giddy even. Jake showed up late and didn't even look at me when he walked in. Just threw me a grin like we hadn't been best friends for 20 years. Like nothing was happening. And that's when I knew. They thought they'd get away with it. They thought I'd never find out. Or worse, that I'd never leave. Jake had always been the charming one. The magnetic one. The guy everyone forgave, no matter what he did. He could wreck your car and make you laugh about it 10 minutes later. Sarah? She loved that. She loved being adored by someone like that. She loved knowing people wanted her, even if she already had me. Especially if she already had me. Later that night, she asked if I'd help her write her vows. I stared at her for a beat too long. You haven't written them yet? I've started, she said, tucking her legs up on the couch. But I keep overthinking it. I don't want it to sound fake. I almost laughed. I almost screamed. Instead, I said, don't worry, just speak from the heart. She smiled at me like I was the best man she'd ever known. That night, I added something to my version. Not a threat, not a name drop, just the truth. Stripped of metaphor, stripped of performance. I wasn't going to call them out. I was going to tell a story. And I was going to watch them sit there and pray to God no one else put the pieces together before it was too late. The night before the wedding felt like a funeral I wasn't invited to. I barely spoke during the rehearsal dinner. Just nodded, smiled when I needed to. Everyone was so damn happy. Jake's speech was a hit. Charming, sentimental, exactly what people expected. He said I was the kind of man who gives more than he gets. I nearly choked on my water. Sarah beamed the whole time. She wore this pale green dress I hadn't seen before. Something soft and silky that made her look like a goddess. And the worst part? I still wanted her. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't kill the love. It just mutates it into something grotesque. I looked at her and still saw the woman I fell for. The same laugh, the same freckles across her collarbone. But now it was laced with something venomous. Something that made me feel pathetic. I stepped outside halfway through dessert. The laughter inside felt like a soundtrack to a life I no longer belonged to. Jake followed me out after a few minutes. You good, man? He asked, clapping a hand on my shoulder. It took everything not to flinch. I'm good, I said. Just needed air. He lit a cigarette. We stood there in silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're lucky, you know? Not everyone finds their person. I turned to look at him. For half a second I thought, maybe this was it. Maybe he'd confess. Maybe some part of him felt guilt. But he just took a drag, blew the smoke out toward the trees. You think she's the one? I asked, voice flat. Jake looked at me, grinned. She'd never do you wrong. You've got something real. And in that moment, I realized it. They weren't just keeping it a secret. They thought I was beneath knowing, like I was too stupid or too gentle to notice. Jake wasn't afraid of me. Sarah wasn't ashamed. They'd reduced me to an obstacle. But the thing about being underestimated, it gives you a kind of power. And I was done playing the fool. When I got back to the hotel, I opened my laptop and printed a copy of the vows. The real ones. The ones I'd written after seeing them kiss. I folded them neatly, put them in my inside jacket pocket. Then I sent a text to one of Sarah's old college friends who had RSVP'd late. The one she told me not to worry about including because she's kind of a gossip. I sent her one sentence. Make sure you record the vows tomorrow. No explanation. She replied with a winky face. Perfect. The morning of the wedding, I dressed slow, ate a full breakfast, shaved, smoothed my tie, and when Jake came to my room to check on me, smiling, relaxed, like a man about to stand beside his best friend, I greeted him like everything was fine. Because it was. Finally, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Update 1. Okay. Wow. First of all, thank you. I did not expect this to blow up the way it did. I wasn't planning on posting again, but I've gotten hundreds of messages and some of y'all are unhinged in the best way. One person said I should have fake fainted mid-ceremony. Another told me to replace the unity candle with a Molotov. And honestly, tempting. But no, I didn't light anything on fire. I just told the truth. Let me walk you through it. The venue was perfect. White chairs in rows, strings of fairy lights, the smell of lilacs everywhere. You know, Pinterest dreamland. Sarah looked stunning. She walked down the aisle like nothing was wrong, smiling like she hadn't carved out a piece of me 3 days ago. Jake stood at my side, cool as ever, giving me that smug half-smile like we were about to make a memory. We were. The officiant did the usual. Welcome, family, love is patient, blah blah. Then it was time for vows. Sarah went first. She called me her home, said I made her feel safe, that she was grateful to stand beside someone so loyal. I almost laughed. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stay still. I think I drew blood. Then it was my turn. I took out the card. Not the copy Sarah had read earlier in the week when she wanted to make sure we were on the same page. The real one. And I started reading. Sarah, 3 days ago, I thought I knew what love meant. I thought it was late-night ice cream runs and your socks always ending up in my drawer and dancing in the kitchen to terrible music. I thought it was trust and inside jokes and catching each other when we fall. But love isn't just those things. Love is not kissing my best friend in our apartment when you think I'm not home. Love is not sneaking around behind the back of someone who would have taken a bullet for you. Both of you. Love is not standing here in a white dress while the knife is still warm in your hand. There was a ripple in the crowd. You know that moment in a movie when everyone realizes the building's about to explode? That pause before the panic? It felt like that. Just breathing and tension and the sound of someone gasping. I looked up. Sarah's face? Drained. Eyes wide, mouth parted, like she was trying to understand if this was real. Jake had gone pale. His hands were clenched so hard I thought he might snap his fingers off. I kept going. I wrote new vows because the old ones were a lie, and I figured if we're going to lie in front of everyone, we might as well make it count. I vow to stop being the guy who forgives without question. I vow to walk away from people who see me as disposable. I vow to rebuild my life with the same hands that built this wedding. And I vow to never let betrayal wear a smile again. I folded the card, tucked it back in my jacket, turned to the officiant. I'm done. And then, I walked. Not a sprint. Not some dramatic, storm-out rage walk. Just calm. Measured. Like I was walking out of a burning house barefoot. And every step forward was freedom. Behind me, I heard someone yell my name. I think it was Sarah. Someone else was crying. But I didn't look back. I never fucking looked back. I didn't go home right away. I drove to the river, parked by the old marina where Jake and I used to sneak beers in high school. I sat on the hood of my car in a suit that no longer meant anything, watching the water ripple under the wind, trying to feel something, relief, rage, closure. But mostly, I felt hollow, like I'd been gutted and hadn't realized it until the pain stopped. Then my phone started vibrating. First a text from Sarah. What the fuck, Jason? Then another. Come back. We can fix this. Please. Then, you humiliated me. In front of my family. That part made me laugh. The gall of it. Like I hadn't been the one humiliated first. The messages kept coming. Then calls. Then a voicemail from her mom. Jason, sweetheart. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Could you come talk to Sarah? She's very upset. A misunderstanding. Right. I turned off my phone. Didn't turn it back on until midnight. 62 missed calls. 37 texts. But only one voicemail from Jake. I'll never forget it. His voice was shaky. Unlike him. Jason, man, I didn't think it would go that far. I swear to God it didn't mean anything. I was drunk. She was upset. It was a mistake. Please don't let this be the end of us. You're my brother. No, Jake. I was your brother. You were just a fucking virus in disguise. When I got home, Sarah was there. Outside. Barefoot on the steps in her wedding dress. Mascara streaked down her face. Veil half ripped. She looked like a ghost that had just crawled out of its own grave. When she saw me, she ran over like we were in some dumb Nicholas Sparks movie. But I didn't flinch. You made your point, she said, voice trembling. Okay? You wanted to embarrass me. You did. Can we please just talk like adults now? I opened the door without answering. She followed me in. And that's when the mask shattered. Because the second the door closed, her voice flipped. You manipulative piece of sh*t. You think that was heroic? That was petty. That was cruel. You ruined everything. I turned and looked at her. Calm. Cold. No, you did. And then she did what unstable people do when they're cornered. She went nuclear. Started screaming. Throwing things. Grabbed a photo off the shelf, one of us from our first trip to Oregon, and smashed it against the floor. You think you're better than me? She shrieked. You think people are going to be on your side when they find out you abandoned your fiancé at the altar? I didn't answer. She stormed into the bedroom and started grabbing drawers, ripping clothes, slamming doors like her chaos might win me back, like destruction could erase what she did. You're nothing without me, she yelled. You're just some boring safe guy no one would ever look at twice. Then she picked up a wine bottle from the counter, held it up, and for a second I truly thought she might throw it. Instead, she sank to the floor, crying, mumbled, I'm sorry, through hiccups and snot and broken pride, but I wasn't going to comfort her. Not anymore. Not ever again. I didn't talk to Jake. For 2 days, I ghosted every text, every call, every pitiful attempt at bro-code apologies. He even showed up to my place once, knocked for 5 minutes straight. I didn't answer, just sat on the other side of the door, listening to him mutter, "Please, man, just talk to me." He eventually gave up, but I didn't. Because while Sarah was spiraling, sobbing on the bathroom floor, begging for second chances between panic attacks, I was planning something worse than leaving. I was planning the truth. Jake and I had a mutual friend, Evan. Quiet guy. Not one for drama, but the kind of dude who pays attention. He was one of my groomsmen. Also, he worked IT at the same company where Jake had just landed a new promotion. I called Evan, and I told him everything. "I'm not asking you to do anything illegal," I said. "I'm just saying, if Jake ever used his company email for anything shady, it'd be good to know, especially if it involved Sarah." There was a pause. Then Evan just said, "I'll look into it." A week later, he sent me a zip file, screenshots, emails, a Google Drive invite shared from Jake's company account titled "For Her Eyes Only." Inside, photos, nudes, some from Sarah, some from Jake, all time-stamped. One of them on the exact night Sarah told me she was crashing at her sister's to avoid pre-wedding stress. There were also videos. One of them filmed inside my apartment, on my couch, while I was away on a work trip. And just like that, it wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was war. I didn't send the photos to her family. I didn't leak them online. I didn't scream or punch or expose her in a way that would bounce back on me. Instead, I scheduled a dinner, a formal thank you meal for everyone who helped make the wedding possible. Sarah's parents came. So did Jake's girlfriend, Melanie, a quiet woman who always seemed a little too invisible around Jake's louder, flirtier energy. I made steaks, brought out wine, played the perfect host. Then I stood up mid-meal and said, "I just want to raise a glass to loyalty." Everyone smiled. I kept going. "To knowing who your friends are, to trust, to all the things that matter more than flowers and vows." Melanie tilted her head. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out a USB, placed it on the table between the mashed potatoes and the red wine. No words, just a look at Jake, then Sarah. Then I turned to Melanie and said, "If you ever want to know why he's been so distant lately, you'll want to plug that in." The silence that followed was biblical. Jake's face drained to ash. Sarah whispered, "Jason, don't," but it was too late. Melanie slowly reached for the drive like it was radioactive. I looked at Sarah's parents. "Your daughter's not who you think she is." Then I stood, grabbed my jacket, and left them in my house to stew in the stink of what they'd done. Update 2. Didn't think I'd be back. Honestly thought that dinner would be the end of it. The exclamation mark on the whole damn saga. But Sarah didn't let it die. And Jake, he made it worse. Y'all asked for aftermath. So here it is. Melanie didn't wait a day. She plugged the drive in that night. According to Evan, who I still owe a drink for this, Jake's company email got flagged for suspicious file sharing. Not only had he used a work account to trade explicit media, he'd sent some of Sarah's pictures to a different coworker 6 months ago. Yeah, Jake was bragging. Melanie took that USB straight to his boss the next morning. By 5 p.m., he was fired, blacklisted from the whole firm. Apparently, one of the partners was a family man with zero tolerance for moral liability. Jake had just landed that promotion. Now, he's unemployed, publicly shamed, and rumor has it, his girlfriend packed all his shot into garbage bags and left them in the parking lot of his gym. Sarah, meanwhile, tried to spin it. I got texts from her cousin, her friends, even her hairdresser saying she was telling people I'd had a mental breakdown at the altar, that I was abusive, that I faked the cheating to get out of the wedding without refunding the costs. Cute. Except Melanie wasn't quiet. She uploaded the whole dinner reveal, audio only, to a private group chat of mutuals. It spread like wildfire. Turns out people love a real-life telenovela, especially when it involves betrayal, weddings, and a flash drive full of receipts. Within a week, Sarah's reputation was radioactive. She lost her bridesmaid brand deal on Instagram. Her mom took down the wedding blog. Her job, editing wedding features at a local magazine, quietly moved her to a non-editorial role. No public statement, just vanished from the bylines. And me? I moved, found a smaller place across town, donated every piece of furniture they ever touched, started running again, picked up freelance gigs to stay busy. A couple weeks ago, I got an email from Sarah. Just one sentence. "You were never supposed to find out." I didn't reply. Because here's the truth. I'm glad I did. Finding out saved me. It peeled away the lie I was building my life around. It let me see who they really were, who I really was underneath all the forgiveness and over-explaining and emotional hand-holding. And you know what? That wedding day? It didn't ruin me. It was the best fucking thing that never happened. It's been 2 months. Enough time that people assume you're okay again, that the dust has settled, that maybe you've forgiven, moved on, let it go. But here's what they don't understand. Some betrayals don't fade, they ferment. And mine? It aged like battery acid. I didn't plan to take it any further. I really didn't. I thought I'd made my point. Burned the bridge, salted the earth, walked away. Then I got a call from my cousin, Jordan. He works at the city clerk's office. Says, "Hey, not sure if this is weird, but did you and Sarah actually get married? Like, legally?" I laughed. "Hell no." He paused. "Okay, so then why did she file a name change under your last name last week?" I froze. "What?" "She changed her legal name to Sarah, my last name. Filed it herself. No marriage license on record. Just the name change." It felt like ice water down my spine. She was trying to keep the name. I thought maybe it was some glitch, some legal cleanup thing, but then I checked her socials, the ones she hadn't blocked me from, and there it was. Bio. Sarah, my last name, writer, dreamer, survivor of chaos. She was playing the victim, wearing my name like a trophy, milking it for sympathy. Her latest post? A blurry sunset selfie with the caption, "Starting over is hard, especially when people tear you down for trusting the wrong person." Wrong person. Me. I saw red. She wasn't just moving on. She was rewriting the story, erasing the betrayal, painting herself as some poor woman left at the altar by a paranoid, emotionally unstable man. And people were eating it up. Comments full of, "You're so strong. He didn't deserve you. You'll find your real king." So I did the last thing I swore I wouldn't. I uploaded the video. Not the whole vows, just a clip. 38 seconds. Enough to show me saying the words, "Love is not kissing my best friend in our apartment when you think I'm not home." Captioned it. Since people keep asking what really happened at the wedding, here's a little context. Didn't tag her, didn't name her, but it didn't matter. People knew. Within hours, it hit 10,000 views, then 40K. Then it landed on a wedding drama subreddit and exploded. Her comment section went dead silent, then turned. A slow tide of, "Wait, is this about you?" And, "This is the groom's video, isn't it?" And, "This doesn't match your version." She locked her account, deleted the post, filed a takedown request that got denied because I was in the video and didn't name her. And that's when it ended. For real. Because the one thing narcissists can't survive? Silence. She hasn't contacted me since. Jake? Last I heard, he was bartending at some dive downtown. Melanie moved out. His reputation is wrecked. Nobody's calling him best man anymore. And me? I sleep fine now. Not because I got revenge, but because I told the truth. Loud enough that it couldn't be buried. It's strange. What stays and what fades? The sound of her heels on the church floor? Gone. Jake's voice saying, "You're my brother?" Echoes now, but soft. But that moment, standing at the altar looking out at a sea of faces, holding that piece of paper in my hand and choosing to read it, that's burned into me like ink into bone. Because for once, I didn't protect anyone else's feelings. I protected mine. People always say healing is this peaceful process, like it's warm tea and therapy and soft blankets. But sometimes it's messy as hell. Sometimes healing looks like taking a blowtorch to the future you spent years building and saying, "Good, let it burn." I lost a wedding, a fiancé, and a best friend. But I gained something else. Boundaries, a backbone, and a quiet kind of strength I didn't know I had. The kind of strength that walks away before the explosion and still leaves shrapnel behind. A few weeks ago, I got coffee with an old friend. Someone who wasn't even invited to the wedding because Sarah didn't vibe with her. We talked for hours, laughed, caught up on years lost to someone else's orbit. At the end of it, she said, "You look different." I asked what she meant. She smiled. "Like you finally stopped carrying everyone else's shit." She's right. My house is quieter now. No more shared closet, no more his and hers mugs mocking me from the cabinet. I threw them out, bought a set that just says, "Mine." I walk more, sleep better, journal sometimes when the anger creeps in and tries to turn the past into poison. And last week, I took the ring, the one I never gave her, and sold it. Used the money to book a trip I always said we'd take someday. Except this time, I'm going alone, to hike, to write, to sit in a place where no one knows my name and no one ever called me safe like it was a curse. Because I'm not safe. Not anymore. I'm dangerous now, but only to the people who thought I'd never fight back.